Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ventures Podcast. If you've been following along with this show, you'll notice I've been doing a bunch of screencasts recently, so welcome back to video. I'm excited about this episode with Mike Anderson and Jesse Bryan. We talk about Alphi. They've been on the show before. I'll put the link to the previous show in the show notes, but we talk about why digital asset ownership matters, what they're up to with Alphi.xyz and organizing all the information in the metaverse, how they're incentivizing community journalists, why that's important, how they're starting a new leadership academy, because people are very curious about how do you break into Web3, how do you get a job in Web3, how can you have a notable resume in Web3 in addition to your transactions on with your wallet address. So contributing to Alphi.xyz allows you to show the type of projects that you're into and the type of information that you're willing to share with the community. And so participating in this new leadership academy that they have is important. Now, full disclosure, I am an investor. My group is an investor in Alphi.xyz. So this is not financial advice or legal advice in any sort of way, but I'm interested, and I get into this a little bit toward the end. I'm interested in the intersection of Web3 and impact. Like, how is Web3 actually helping humans flourish? And so we talk a little bit about that and why sort of Mike and Jesse and the team have a heart to genuinely help. And it's quite frankly very refreshing that people like Mike and Jesse are doing what they're doing in this space. So if you're watching this episode, you can always listen at any time. Just search for Ventures in your favorite podcast player and it should show up. And if you're listening, you can also watch. Just visit the link in the show notes and you'll be able to watch the video of this episode. So with that, please enjoy this conversation with Mike Anderson and Jesse Bryan. All right, Mike, Jesse, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So I want to just start with the question, why is digital asset ownership important?
I mean, for me, it's important to understand the context of that, right? So I'm sure most of your listeners are already are aware of this framework, but for the folks that aren't, if you think about the evolution of the internet, at each evolution, there's massive new opportunities, right? So if the first evolution of the internet was read, it's like terminal, you can come in, you can, consume information, right? More academic, you can see how that worked. As the internet evolved, all of a sudden you got the second evolution of the internet, which was read and write. So not only can I consume information, but I can add to it. And then so once you start being able to build on top of the internet, all of a sudden you open it up to all sorts of new and interesting, everything from like your Amazons to your Twitters to your Airbnb. You have this massive new wave of organizations that can capitalize on that new evolutionary step in the internet, right? And so the evolutionary step that a lot of us believe we're at now is this Web3 piece. And that's why even the number 3, people are like, why is it Web3? Well, it's just a third evolution, right? And like anything, it will just keep evolving over time and there'll be new and interesting opportunities because of it. So the Web3 piece was just read, write. Oh, I can now add to the internet. I can build on top of it. And then now this new piece of Web3 is own, which means I can actually truly own digital assets. So up to this point, like if you ask people, do you own any digital assets? Most people probably say yes, but they don't actually own them. They're really leasing them, I guess, with no term to the lease. So for instance, if you buy, it doesn't matter, this isn't like Kindle books or if you buy Apple books, right? If you can only pretty much consume that information inside of their walled garden and you can't buy, sell, trade, then you never really owned it, right? So if you buy an IRL book, I can pay $20 for the book. I can read it. I can either sell it to you, Mike, or I can let you borrow it, Will, and you can give it back, or we could barter for. We can do all sorts of stuff with that asset. Well, now for the first time, we can actually truly own digital assets, which means I can sell that book I just read or that contract I just purchased to someone else, right? Outside of the ecosystem. Does that make sense? Because of blockchain. And so what we've thought about up to this point as far as digital ownership is about to completely change into true digital ownership, which means you actually custody your own assets and you can create a secondary market for them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that we're in this state where like a lot of us have already started moving into using digital to mediate most of our behaviors. When's the last time you went to the bank? When's the last time you like wrote a check, right? Like we moved our finances onto it. We moved our entertainment onto it. And so the idea now that these physical and digital worlds are blurring, now we can own things. So that allows us to create entire economies. And so people are always wondering like, well, why are these coins going to infinity? Why are NFTs worth money? This sort of thing. And it's because we now have real objects that whole communities are able to get around and form a community around because they want to trade things just like real life people want to collect comic books or sports cars, cards or cars or shoes, right? Like they're all objects that people find identity in, meaning in, community in. And so now that this is happening on the internet, it allows every organization out there to reorganize themselves around this idea of ownership. And it's happening. And it's already, even in a down market, north of $1 billion a month are trading hands with this. And it's expected that in a lot of countries right now, things like property deeds are being put onto the blockchain. And so they're expecting that around $16 trillion of tokenized assets will be on chain by the end of this decade. So roughly 7 years from now. So that's how big we're talking.
Yeah, 10% of global GDP tied up in these assets, right? And so this is important to us, at least from the standpoint of, well, it's like when you think about how to see an upside for your labor, do you see an upside when you're renting or do you see an upside when you're the owner, right? Like I've told the story before, but my dad used to work at a really high end auto shop in Palm Springs, Rolls Royce, Bentley, all that kind of stuff. And I asked him, if you had to guess most of your clients, how did they get that wealthy? And he said, oh, 80% it was real estate. Well, why is that important? Because when you own the real estate, right, you have options. You can build on top of it. You can leverage it when you own it. When you're renting, you're just renting, you know? And so what's exciting, I don't know, at least to me, and I think Mike too, is this idea that there's this new economy that's being built where you can go from being a renter to owning a little piece of the internet, right? And you can monetize because once it's on the blockchain and you can have the secondary market, you don't need intermediaries anymore. I mean, this is already happening with real estate, well, in Miami, where if you owned a condo in Miami and I wanted to buy it, we can agree to terms and you send me the contract and I send you the Ethereum and, in a trustless system and boom, we just changed hands with this contract and we didn't need to bring anybody else into it. Right. And so all those kind of middle pieces, middlemen, right? People are starting to be able to take that margin back, whether you're an artist or a small business owner or you name it, right? Which is a game changer as far as actually allowing people to find, like I said, to truly carve out a place where they can make a living, irregardless of, where they're at in the world, socioeconomic level, right? For the first time, you can actually start and really own your own little economy.
So we all have no lack of crypto skeptics in our lives, right? NFT skeptics. They've been hearing this message from us for the last X number of years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And from their perspective, not much has actualized. If anything, we've gotten the Terra Luna collapse. We have SBF. We have scandal after scandal after scandal, pump and dump after pump and dump. There's this promise of facilitating people to make all this money, but is it actually happening? Like, what do the both of you say to these skeptics that, hey, we're not there, and it just seems like you're selling me some snake oil here?
Mm-hmm. I would say look at every new adoption of technology. That's what I would say. Right? Like, because when you dig into it, go watch the old videos of people saying nobody's ever going to want a PC in their house. You're making all these things about how computers are going to change the world. I just don't see it. I can imagine all the videos of people saying, you think people are going to want one of these ugly boxes in their house and they're going to sit behind them all day long? No way. Or if the internet, right? after the first really like .com collapse, a lot of people I'm sure were like, well, that's the end of this, right? But remember what happened after that collapse, because ultimately the technology is sound and working, right? Because even after the .com crash, like the internet still worked, right? There was just a lot of just garbage that needed to be flushed out of the system. But the overall technology works. Like if you don't like crypto, I can completely understand that. But right now, Will, you and I have freedom to transact 7 days a week, 365. The blockchain's intact, it's working. So I would suggest, like, instead of looking at specific use cases, I would zoom out and go like, okay, is the fundamentals behind these things intact or not? Right? Like, did they go down? Because even Mike, the fact that less than 1% of Americans have had a meaningful interaction with digital ownership yet, and we're doing what, $1 billion some odd dollars a month in revenue, just in kind of the NFT ecosystem, doesn't even include all these other pieces we're talking about. It's just a precursor, and that's in the down market, right? Mike, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, and the actual banks are actually collapsing, like on the day that we're recording this, right? So our financial system is in this weird state of change, and our economy is becoming more digital all the time. Our lives are being spent more and more in a digital space, and digital native currency makes sense. Right now, we know that federal reserves around the world have already released their own digital coins. It sounds like right now there's going to be called Fed Now. That's the American version for moving money digitally. And so even the banks are starting to adopt this technology, right? Like behind every Ticketmaster ticket, they're using an NFT to keep track of it. So this technology is working its way into all of the Web2 products, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, because there's a lot of utility in being able to track these things and be able to turn them all into markets. And so a great example is just this last week, we were in New York, and there's this artist that we really like. And she is used to going through galleries where she has to pay a whole lot of money to, like half plus of the paintings will go to that dealer. And she doesn't get to have a direct relationship with her own patrons. Well, now with Web3, she's able to take her art and she's able to make digital versions of that, sell that to people that believe in her. And she just made it so that now you can get a unique one of hers. And so now I can have this relationship with this artist. This solves the artist's business problem, and it creates actual community amongst her patrons. And so that's a great use case of how these things are starting to be tested out. And we're just seeing the small seedlings, right? There are already things that exist today that are going to grow into multi-billion-dollar businesses once they have 4 or 5 years to grow, try things out. But it's definitely where things are heading.
So why are you doing Alfie, right? I'll refer listeners and viewers back to a previous episode where we introduced Alfie. Why are you doing it? How is it involved? How are things going? Maybe tee us up on the latest on all things Alfie.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you why at least Alfie was important for me, in that I was looking at the technology, I was looking at this possibilities of this new ecosystem and really new economy that can be built that would be a true game changer for folks that maybe haven't had opportunities before. Like to Mike's point about that artist, where all of a sudden she's keeping 50% more of her revenue, right? And she has a direct relationship with her customers. That's amazing. That was never possible before. Really, the blockchain enabled that, right? These trustless interactions, trustless transactions happening 24/7, 365. It's truly her economy, right, that she's building. Once you see the possibilities of what this technology can do, like I said, you could be anywhere in the world. Nobody needs to know your age, religion, sexual orientation, background, none of that. And if you can provide value on the internet, you can actually extract that value from the internet and the community, while simultaneously providing more value than you're extracting. Like that being possible is like, in my mind, I think it's bigger than the first two evolutions of the internet. I think that this ownership piece we're going to look at, and it will become the game changer for the next 20 or 30 years. It's the Peter Thiel, like, what's your unpopular belief? My unpopular belief is that all the major brands and IP for the next 20 years are all going to come out of this digital ownership space because of network effects and things like that, right? And so the issue I was seeing was all the BS in the system, right? Like going back to the .com days where, whatever pets.com, the URLs being sold for like $1 million and all that kind of stuff. Well, it didn't mean there shouldn't be websites. It didn't mean you couldn't build a business on the internet, right? It just meant there was a lot of kind of garbage and hype that needs to be, taken out of the system. And so I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this technology going, this is a game changer for individuals, communities, and businesses to build out their own economy. And nobody knows about it. And most of the information they're getting is siloed and fractured and hard to find, or it's just BS. Because Gary Vee talks about this, where he said the problem with kind of the digital asset ecosystem right now is that 98% of the stuff is garbage. The issue is the other 2% are the next Googles and Amazons and Airbnbs. And so, how do you tell the difference between the hype and BS that people are getting caught up in that's really not beneficial to their lives, right? Where they get taken advantage of and immediately they dip out. And I was like, well, I wonder if as a community of people, we can get together and create this open and free, database that anyone can use to not only get the information they need to make well-informed decisions, but also find new opportunities in this ecosystem. And so that was kind of our experiment with Alfie at the beginning. And I'm happy to say that as of this weekend, we just passed our 200th project added to the ecosystem, really in about a month and a half since we started pushing. And so that's 200 pages where people only connected around these ecosystems have gotten together and started building out this open and free database. And when you think about that, that's not 200 projects, that's really 200 businesses that are now have representation and have a sales funnel. And that we've also brought transparency to who these people are, who the teams are, their track records, all in one place, and it's open and free for anybody on the internet. That's never happened before. So the goal was, can we leverage the superpower of Web3, which is community and networks, and create this kind of Wikipedia, Reddit type of an ecosystem where not only can people be recognized for their contributions, be rewarded for their contributions, but also build a reputation so that all the new businesses and organizations looking for talent can find them inside the ecosystem we're building.
Yeah, Mike, you want to add to that? Like, what is Alfie? Just, I know Jesse just sort of gave the high level, but like, what can you do right now? What does it mean that you can add content? Like, can you describe a little bit of that? Yeah.
Totally. So there's a whole bunch of these digital collectible projects. You may have heard of Bored Ape Yacht Club. There's a whole bunch of them. Some of them are like Bored Ape Yacht Club, for instance, is putting out a whole metaverse where like 10,000 plus people can play massive games together. And it's like one of the more amazing technological feats I've seen. How does a new person in the system know that, right? There's not like a clear place where you can go. There's no IMDb for this. So people can come to Alfie and they can read about any of the major projects. They can connect their wallet, and then we know if they own those projects, and then those people can contribute to the projects that they're a part of. So it's a way of making sure that we have quality content and we've got reputations being built around these individuals so that we can find bad actors, we can make sure that we're fact checking, all of these sorts of things. And really at the end of the day, the thing that's the most exciting to me is that we're gamifying this whole thing and building an actual community around it of people who want to be community journalists. They want to learn how to create YouTube videos and Instagram and TikTok videos. They want to do research and be in these Twitter spaces because this is what they love to do. Kind of like somebody would want to go to a comic book convention or would want to go play video games. And we've gamified the whole thing so that we've got this core of people who really love it and are passionate about it. And you just can't even pay for that. You couldn't pay for journalists who love a thing and are able to explain to others why they love it and go be ambassadors for it. And so it's just this really cool place where some of the best community people from across the ecosystem are coming to Alfie to learn to up their game and to help create this database.
So if I'm a enthusiast of collection X, let's say, Wandering Wizards, I don't think that's actually a thing, but if I'm Wandering Wizards and I'm really excited about this project, what do I do? Like, I go to Alfie, and how do I, like, what's the roadmap for me if I'm really excited about Wandering Wizards?
Well, what's really interesting is that we've seen, like, the funny thing is, Will, this weekend we saw a couple of interesting things that we hadn't seen yet, right? which is individual projects coming in and building out their own pages before they've even launched, right?
Mm,
So that hadn't happened until this weekend, where folks are going, wait a second, I want to be on Alfie because there's discoverability here. And so I'm going to lead with transparency. This is what we're doing. Here's our roadmap. Here's the people behind it. And so
mm,
we saw that twice this weekend, which we've
mm.
never seen before. One of the projects even said they changed on their Twitter, they changed their kind of link tree just to, hey, just go to Alfie and all of our information's there. These are things that I didn't anticipate happening for maybe 6 months or plus. Because right now it's the community comes in. If you're a Wandering Wizards fan and you know all about it, and you want other people to learn about the project, but maybe the website hasn't been updated, maybe because most of these projects it's impossible to find this information, right? And you can go in and you can say add new collection, and you can say I want to add Wandering Wizards, and then you get pretty much like a blank page, almost like Wikipedia with gaps, and then they fill that all in, and then they submit it for review, and then somebody from our team reviews it and make sure all the links are in there, and then it goes live. And now anybody who wants to do research on Wandering Wizards can go and get, here's what the project is, this is the information around the project, here's who the people are that founded it, all that pertinent information, so that there's transparency for the consumer is all right there. So you can do all that research along with all the links, all the pertinent links if you want to go deeper. And the upside for them is now they, in essence, they have a sales funnel, all the while just creating more and more transparency in the ecosystem. So it's good for the projects because now they have a place to be able to be cross-referenced with other projects. In essence, like Alfie for good actors, people that have great projects and really care about what they're doing in their communities, you're going to love Alfie because in essence, you have a way to, through transparency, get more eyeballs on your project. If you're a consumer, you're going to love Alfie because you can go get all the information you need. You just simply can't find anywhere else. And it was all brought to you by trusted members of the community that you already know, right? And so we're trying to serve both sides at the same time.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and
That's
Mike,
kind of like the Wikipedia style. And then the
right.
Reddit style piece is the front page, which is, I mean, Will, you and I will talk about this stuff all the time where you'll say, hey, did I miss this drop? Wait, what's going on? Because there's stuff going on 365, you know? And it's really hard to stay on top of this stuff unless you're constantly on Twitter and Discord and stuff, which is already a hassle. So now other members of the community can come in like Reddit and go, hey, you're into Wandering Wizards? Don't forget, like the CEO made an announcement this morning. If you didn't see it, here it is. And also just a reminder that next Thursday is the last day to, I don't know, whatever, enchant
Hmm.
your hats or whatever the thing is.
Right.
Now, Will, you can just go to Alfie's front page in the morning and see a recap of every community you're part of, all sourced from the community.
Mm, mm. And what's my incentive mechanism? Like if I'm into Wandering Wizards, why am I incentivized? Like with Wikipedia, there was sort of this, I think it was sort of this love of information and knowledge and being a good citizen, similar to all the open source software projects out there for the last 20, 30 years.
Right.
What is the incentive mechanism now with Alfie?
Well, so the nice thing is we've kind of upped, in my opinion, again, from a transparency standpoint, like if you go to Wikipedia, you can't see who actually wrote the articles, right? That all that stuff is behind the scenes.
Mm,
We wanted to acknowledge all the people in the community that are taking the time to do this. So when you go to like the Wandering Wizards page, you will see the top contributors from the community that help make this possible. They're the ones that actually go in and keep the database updated. The cool thing about that is it's a real opportunity for them to get in front of all the collections they care the most about so that they can be acknowledged for that. So it's almost like, your version of like karma or those types of things like from Reddit. Except now it's not just you get XP for every time you do an update or aggregate information. You also get your name top billing at the top of the page. So there's a lot of folks in our ecosystem that their main goal is they want to get a job in Web3. They want to be seen as an expert. They're looking for opportunities
ah,
in this new ecosystem. And so if you go our top 100 journalist page, you can go and look at who our top journalists are. And so if you're going, hey, I'm Adidas, and they just launched a massive campaign last week for Web3, I'm looking for a great community manager. Well, how do you find that talent? That talent is not on LinkedIn, right? The talent is probably anonymous people in this ecosystem. Well, for the first time, you can go to Alfie and you can go, wow, here's this journalist that's been updating these 4 pages that are all really complete. and they have this amazing, we're adding in vouching and different things, and they have this amazing digital, like in essence, digital reputation that I can see. Oh, can you get in contact with
Mm,
Punk 652 because we'd love to talk to them about maybe making some content for us or whatever. And so they're getting rewarded through our XP system, which you can use for drops and all sorts of stuff. We have our own collection coming out that's really more of like a story based collection that the entire first season you can only get in exchange for the XP that you get by being a journalist. So we're rewarding you with XP, airdrops, stuff like that.
mm,
Also, there's going to be allow lists because, in essence, everybody in the ecosystem, projects in the ecosystem, one community journalist is worth 100 normal people in a community because community journalists, in essence, they're your sales and marketing team and they're making content for you, right? And so we've gamified that list to where not only do they get recognition and XP, but also they get to build out their own little economy on top of Alfie. Again, the magic of Web3 is you being able to build out your own economy, irregardless of who you are and where you're from.
yeah,
So what we're really excited about is almost this, the sleeper mode, almost like come for the tool, stay for the network type stuff, right? Well, come for the tool of doing all this research and building out this database, but you stay because you have this digital reputation now that's tied to proof of your work that allows you to get more and more opportunities in the ecosystem and hopefully connect with, the next great companies that are looking for
yeah,
talent like yours.
yeah. Couple of final topics I'm curious about. So I'm all about impact and human flourishing, right? My venture capital group, we venture build and venture invest to promote human flourishing. I'm very interested in how the intersection between Web3 and impact. And I know y'all are working on a new leadership academy and
Yep.
how you're empowering people to grow in the community, build their skills, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right.
Mike, can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that and kind of how that ties in maybe with kind of at least my and I know our interests and sort of the broader why for Web3?
Yeah, it's so awesome. So like the cool thing about digital ownership is it invites everybody to come in and be part of it, right? We're all part of making this thing happen. And so with Alfie, we've talked about how we gamified everything, but now we're offering a program where we're getting all of our friends who are like, I mean, some of these people are the smartest people that I've ever met when it comes to storytelling or brand building or videography or animation, whatever the thing is that our people care about, we can help them up their skills. And so what we're doing is we're having this Alfie Academy, Alfie Leadership Academy. We just had the very first one actually this morning, and 6 people came. And I was expecting, like, I was hoping this would be like an internship program. Like maybe we could get some college students to come show up. I was the only person at the first meeting that didn't have a master's degree.
Mm,
And so I was like, whoa, like these are really interesting people. And it's like, well, why are you coming here? And they're like, well, I can get a job, but what I want to do is I want to work in Web3. I'm passionate about
mm,
this. I love this. I see this technology as being the future. And I see this group of people as being a network that if I actually belong to this network and learn alongside, I'm going to up my skills. I'm going to up my connections. And this gives me a better chance at being able to do what I really want to do with my life. And so what we're doing is like we're literally helping individuals flourish by letting them control their own destiny. They get
mm,
to decide, hey, I really care about. I want to be able to make great TikTok videos about the projects I love, and so we're going to help them do that. And we've got a
mm.
whole list of people that we've already helped do that in the past because this is kind of what we've been doing at a smaller scale. Now we get to do it at a huge scale. Like I'm looking forward to Alfie Leadership Academy 2 and 3 when we have like 100 to 1,000 people who are there and they're all learning
Does it
together.
cost anything? Like, how do people get in on this action?
Nope. So, I mean, right now we opened it up to our private community. We're gonna with this first group, we need to get our kind of like functional foundations in place with these 6, and then we'll be putting up a public website here shortly, probably in the next month or so, to bring more people in. But what I would advise everybody to do is go interact with us on Twitter, and we'll invite you into a private Twitter group with this group of folks,
Mm.
and we'll get you on board and we'll get you set up.
Okay, so follow Twitter, interact with the tweets on this, and
Yep.
then hopefully, get an invite into the private
Alfie
group.
Yep, Alfie, Alphi.xyz. That's our Twitter.
I mean, because here's what it is, Will, is like our goal right now is to find the most knowledgeable and generous people in the space. They come in and help us build out this open and free database for everyone, and we help them find their next big opportunity through that ecosystem, right? And so that's the network we're trying to build. Is is like a group of people that really know this space like crazy to the point where they can actually fill in this database and help us.
Hmm.
But then also, how do we platform them and help them find their next opportunity so that, again, how do we take this industry that I think has all the potential in the world, but right now looks like it's being run by like 13-year-old boys, right?
Hmm.
And find all the best people that we can, rally them together to help create really a metaverse we'd want to go to, right? Instead of right now, it just feels really childish and silly, which is usually the way these technology, like if you go to the first app store and look at how silly the apps were, where it looks like you're drinking a beer or whatever, and then it matures, and the next thing you know, you have Instagram and all these amazing apps, right? We're kind of in that phase, and so how do we help influence this new world for the better by creating not just only the tool, but also this network where everyone's helping each other?
Gentlemen, this has been great. Really, really great to have you back on the show. I'm sure there'll be some follow-up questions. Maybe we'll jump on again here in the near future. But yeah, really great to have you. Really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I wanted to just let you know before you go that if you're interested in following along with any of the content I write, go to wclittle.com. There I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to and just subscribe to any topic that I write about, whether it's Web3 or health science or software development or any of the miscellaneous new buzzwords like generative AI and other things that come up. And you can also publish. That new platform is called Satchel. We're letting in more folks into the beta. Think kind of like a Substack, Medium, Mirror, WordPress, but it has some new features that are coming that I think you're going to be really interested in. Also, if you're building a startup, I have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. StartupRocket.com gives you coaching frameworks and different guides so that you have an understanding about how to build a startup in a scalable way, and you can bring in your team and your mentors and advisors and potential investors. So we've built that platform and use it internally at my venture capital group, Proto Ventures, and I would highly recommend it for you. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week.